All right, looks like we're live again. Our next talk is going to be given by Anna. Her talk is Become a Mentor, Helping Others Succeed. And Anna is currently looking for a new people-paced role in tech, or at least that's what she wrote a few months ago when she submitted this talk. She is a former director of the Python Software Foundation, PyCon Open Spaces Chair, I can't talk, man. DjangoCon US Communications Chair and a group leader of the PyLadies remote group. In her free time, she loves speaking at conferences and mentoring future speakers. Anna is very passionate about diversity and community outreach and wants to encourage more women to learn programming because it's awesome. Anna, why don't you go ahead and take it from here?
Thank you, Charles. Hello, everyone, and I'm sorry for the delay. I had a little bit of trouble getting my slides to work. So as Charles already said, my name's Anna Ossowski. I'm here in Germany, so it's actually evening for me, not morning like it is for most of you. I have a degree in English and Catholic theology. You may have identified William Shakespeare and Pope Francis on my slides here. But about 3 years ago, I started learning Python and I got involved in the Python and Django communities. And I like code, but I also like people, so I love working at the intersection of both. And I actually just started a new job last week. And I currently work as the Community and Operations Manager of Django REST Framework. And everything else that Charles said is true, except that I'm now DjangoCon US Diversity Chair instead of Communications Chair. And this is my first time speaking at a Devops remote conference or at a Devops conference in general, and I was super excited when the organizers reached out to me and asked me to present this talk. So I'm here today to present my talk about becoming a mentor and helping others succeed. And while preparing my talk, I thought I could either just tell you about mentorship in an ordinary way, which probably would have been okay, but maybe a little bit boring. So I decided to connect it with a story. I then thought about any famous mentors I knew, and a few came to my mind, but some of them just weren't a great fit for a tech conference. So I kept on thinking until I stumbled across one of the greatest mentors in history, probably. He's a movie star, and I think he's pretty cute and definitely wise. So this talk isn't only going to be about becoming a mentor and helping others succeed, but it's also going to be about mentoring like the one and only Yoda. I'm by no means a Star Wars expert, so if I say some things that are incorrect, please bear with me and please let me know my mistakes after my talk if you would be so kind. Actually, before preparing this talk, I had never watched a Star Wars movie, but I thought I couldn't be here and talk to you about Star Wars without having seen at least 1 or 2 movies. So I asked my little brother which movie I should watch, and he said the first or the second movie. I then tweeted that I was going to watch my first ever Star Wars movie because I was so proud of doing that. And a friend of mine tweeted back at me and asked me which movie I was going to watch. And I said that my brother had recommended episode 1 or 2. And my friend on Twitter said that my brother must be trolling me. And then I responded, no, he was serious. And he said that all the movies with the new actors aren't quite as good. And then my friend on Twitter said, you want to watch episodes 4 or 5, not 1 or 2. These are the first 2 movies. So you can see that's how little I knew about Star Wars. So I started watching episode 4, and an hour into the movie, I thought it was strange that Yoda hadn't appeared yet. So I turned to Google and figured out that Yoda doesn't actually appear until episode 5. Okay, now enough about me and Star Wars. So before we start this talk and start talking about Yoda, let's get started and take a look at what a mentor is. Like I said, I'm an English major. I love dictionaries. I love definitions. I assume that some of you may have mentored someone and that some of you may have had mentors. The Merriam-Webster dictionary says that a mentor is someone who teaches or gives help and advice to a less experienced and often younger person, and that a mentor is a trusted counselor or guide. I don't think this definition is perfect, but I think it's pretty good. Mentoring doesn't always have to mean giving help or advice to a less experienced person. You can be a mentor to someone who is equally or even more experienced than you are. Also, the person you're mentoring doesn't necessarily have to be younger than you. My brother is 6 years younger than me, and he mentored me regarding Star Wars in a way. I do like the words counselor, guide, and advisor as substitutes for the word mentor. And there are 3 big myths about mentorship, which come up each time I try to encourage other people to take up mentorship. And one of them, which I think is the biggest one, is this one. You have to be an expert in order to be a good mentor. And this myth isn't true. You don't have to be an expert. Oftentimes, it's enough to have gone through the same struggles as the person you're mentoring. I'll give you a little non-tech related example. So I started learning English in 5th grade here in Germany. In 7th or 8th grade, I started tutoring younger students in English to make a little bit of. Was I significantly more experienced than they were? No. I had just gone through the same struggles they were going through and therefore could relate to their struggles, and I was still able to help them. I've been tutoring students in English for over 10 years now, and I think it was even easier for me when I was younger because I was closer to their struggles. And within those 10 years, I finished 9 years of high school English. I did an exchange year in the United States, and I got my bachelor's degree in English. And by no means am I an English expert now, but being more experienced also means having a harder time understanding people's struggles sometimes. And some of you may be able to relate to that. Some of you may have worked in tech for so many years that you might have a hard time understanding the struggles of someone who just started teaching themselves programming. Or I'll give you another example. I don't know if you've heard of Django Girls. It's an initiative that organizes workshops to teach women web development, and they learn how to build a blog in one day. And that's actually how I got my start in tech. I was an attendee at the very first Django Girls event in 2014. So I coached at 2 Django Girls events, and before I coached the first time, I was terrified, and I was hesitant to coach because I thought I wasn't experienced enough and therefore wouldn't be able to help anyone. And it turns out that I was pretty wrong. I had done the tutorial myself. I read the tutorial because they keep updating it. I read some other Django books. I dabbled a little bit with Django myself, and I was still able to help people, and that's an amazing feeling. I didn't always know the answer, but sometimes all it takes is to sit next to someone and say, hey, let's try to figure this out together. Or, hey, let me show you my approach. Let me show you where you can look to find the answer. Also, remember that it's okay to say if you don't know something. Mentors are not all-knowing, and mentors can have mentors as well. You don't have to know all the answers, and most of more than you think you know. Another myth is this one. Only in-person mentoring is good mentoring. And that isn't true either. I actually thought so myself for a long time, but it's simply not true. You don't have to live in the same city and meet at the same coffee shop every week in order to have a good and successful mentor-mentee relationship. Remote and online mentoring is just as effective. My friend Ian is one of my #1 mentors, and Ian actually lives in Madison, Wisconsin. And like I mentioned, I live in Germany, so there isn't only a huge geographical distance, there's also a 7-hour time difference. And we still make it work and manage to virtually meet every Wednesday for an hour. Or I can contact him anytime I need help, even if it's not a Wednesday, in our little Slack channel. It's been super helpful and successful, and I learn a ton. And I'll tell you later how we do that. I coached at Django Girls Cologne a while ago, and someone had trouble deploying their app, and I wasn't able to help them, and no one else was. So I hopped on my old work Slack channel, and I contacted my old coworker Brian, and Brian actually lives in Denver, Colorado, and I was sitting in Cologne, and Brian was still able to help us figure out the problem, only by sending back and forth screenshots and answering a couple of questions that Brian had asked us. In-person mentoring is great, but remote mentoring works just as fine. And the third myth is this one. Mentoring takes up a ton of time. And this is probably the one thing that keeps most people from becoming a mentor. They think that it's a huge time commitment. And that That is wrong, actually. Mentoring is definitely a time commitment, but it doesn't have to take up a ton of time, and it doesn't mean that you have to be available all the time if you do it the right way. What has been effective for me is setting up a weekly office hour like Ian and I did. We meet every Wednesday at 8 a.m. his time, which is 3 p.m. my time, and we either use this time for me to ask questions or to work on a project together, or sometimes just to talk about other things. The advantage of having an office hour is that you have a set time where both sides are available. Of course, sometimes life gets in the way and you can't make that work, and that is totally okay as long as you generally try to stick to it. Also, I know that I can ask all my questions on Wednesday, and I don't feel the need to contact Ian every day unless it's something very urgent. So after looking at the definition and identifying 3 myths which aren't true, there's one more question. What is actually your job as a mentor? Your job is basically to be a guide someone on their way of learning how to program, guide someone on their way of making their first open source contribution, guide someone on their way of getting to know a community. I didn't choose the picture of a straight path on my slide here on purpose because usually the path isn't straight when you're in the process of learning something new or getting involved in a new community. There's a lot of trial and error, and sometimes you'll choose the wrong path for a while. And as a mentor, it's kind of your job to get your mentee back on the right path, or at least help them. You may now wonder why you should become a mentor in the first place, and the answer to that question is honestly pretty simple. Because helping others succeed is one of the best feelings in the world. Not only is mentoring super fun and rewarding, you'll also learn a ton, you'll gain great teaching skills, you will meet new people, you will learn how to think from someone else's perspective, you will gain empathy and patience, or you will just overall improve your people skills, as people say nowadays. You will learn a ton of new things and insights from your mentee's questions and understand things in different ways. And you'll be able to use these skills in other areas of your life as well. 2 summers ago, I had committed to a bunch of things and I was feeling a little stressed out. And so I had a chat about it with my friend Adam, and Adam said, you know, Anna, I think all the things you're doing are great, but you're also trying to do a ton of things on your own. How about you get help and teach others how to do things so they can succeed too? And that really got me thinking, and that's actually the reason I decided to write this talk. And the thought crossed my mind that doing everything on my own and not giving other people the chance to get involved is actually pretty selfish. Also, leading projects on your own isn't very sustainable. So I dropped a few commitments, wrote documentation for others, and taught other people how things are done to give them a chance to succeed as well. And now I try to think about that whenever I start something new. And I realized that teaching others takes time, and that's why a lot of people shy away from mentoring. It's often easier to just do it on your own other than explain to someone else how to do something. But I can only encourage you to go that extra step and teach other people because it's so meaningful. When I started out in the Python community, there were a ton of awesome people who helped me, and without them, I most likely wouldn't have started conference speaking at all. And if you think of your own story, there were people like that too. You might have not called them your mentors, but secretly they might have been. Give back to people and help them succeed as well if you can. And if you want to hear it from Yoda, here's what he says. Always pass on what you have learned. As always, very wise words from him. So Luke Skywalker is a farm boy, and Yoda trains him to be a great Jedi. So basically, your job as a mentor or Jedi Master in Star Wars terminology is to train your mentee to become a great Jedi programmer, Jedi speaker, Jedi community member, etc. Yoda isn't perfect, though. Even though he's a great Jedi Master, there are things he doesn't do so well, and that's why he's a perfect example. Everyone makes mistakes. So first, let's take a look at what makes a great Jedi Master. And by the way, just like everything, becoming a great Jedi Master or mentor takes some time and practice. So don't be discouraged when there are things I say that you think you've done wrong so far or aren't as great. I don't know what the last thing you could was that you could hear me say, so I'll just continue with this slide. So when my friend Ian and I started working together, we kind of had the same conversation. We figured out a project to work on together. We figured out that my goal was to become a better programmer, and back then I wanted to learn more about REST APIs. We decided that communication via Slack and email worked best for us, and we decided to virtually meet once a week for an hour. Some weeks I also contact Ian in Slack outside of our office hour, or in Slack or by email, but it's totally up to him when he has time to get back to me, so it works out perfectly. I'm pretty sure Luke and Yoda had that same conversation at some point too, since Yoda says, name must your fear be before banish it you can. You need to talk about what your mentee's scared of or what their goals are, etc. Only then will you be able to achieve great results. As a great Jedi Master, you should also not assume, you should ask instead. And this may sound strange to you because you may think that as a mentor, your main task is to answer questions, and that's true, but before you can answer questions, you need to ask a few questions, and you need to just simply ask, how can I help you? Find out what kind of help your mentee needs. Do they want you to tell them a solution to your problem? Do they just need hints or guidance? Do they need an explanation? Do they just need reassurance? It's also important not to assume knowledge in certain areas. Instead, just ask, do you know this and this? This will not only make your mentee feel 100% more comfortable, this will also make your life as a mentor a lot easier. Learn to ask the right questions to figure out what your mentee does not understand. Oftentimes, people feel insecure and embarrassed to admit that they don't know something. Give them the opportunity to say, I don't know, and make them feel comfortable about it. Which leads us to the next point. Show your flaws. Share your own struggles with your mentee. Tell them what it was like when you... So I said I don't always know the answer, so I will get out my iPad or iPhone and I look up the solution for her, and I do this on purpose to show her that I'm not perfect and all-knowing either, and to also show her that what she can do if she gets in the same situation. And in fact, by saying you don't know something, you will make your mentee's life easier because you show them that you aren't perfect either, which in return will make them feel better about admitting that they don't know something. Also, it takes a ton of pressure off of you. And in the end, you always have to remember that you don't have to know everything. You just have to know where to look it up or who to ask. When Ian and I started working together, I was so scared of admitting that I didn't know something, because to me, he was this great programmer who had written a ton of great libraries in the Python world and was sort of famous in Python, and I thought that I was a nobody. And from day one on, Ian made it a point to teach me that this wasn't true. He shared his own flaws with me. He asked me questions as well. He admitted when he didn't know something. And it takes a while to get comfortable with somebody you don't know very well, but showing your flaws is a great first step, and you can definitely get there. The next thing is to be available, and this doesn't mean that you have to be ready to answer questions 24/7, but you should give your mentee the feeling that you are available when they need you. Sometimes all that means is to sit next to someone, to be online, or to reassure someone that what they're doing is right. And if we look at Luke and Yoda, they spend quite a bit of time together. They don't do that in person, but remember, you don't have to do it in person. Remote mentorship is possible, and it's just as good as in-person mentorship. And how much time you want to spend with your mentee is up to you. Another important thing is to believe in your mentee and to show them that you do believe in them. Sometimes we need someone who believes in us first so we can learn to believe in ourselves. If it hadn't been for a few good friends of mine believing in me to give a good first conference talk about 3 years ago, I probably wouldn't have gone up on stage back then because I was so nervous. Yoda says to Luke, I already know you that which you need. He knows that Luke has it in him to become a great Jedi. He believes in him even when Luke doesn't believe in himself yet. If you believe in your Jedi trainee, they will soon learn to believe in themselves. Yoda pushed Luke to go beyond his perceived limits. He helped him discover his abilities, which were untapped. Do or do not, there is no try. This is a famous Yoda quote. This And this may sound sort of wrong or harsh to people, but to me it actually sounds very encouraging and motivating. I do believe that there is a try, but I think that what Yoda wants to do here is to encourage Luke to start his Jedi training and to do things he maybe thought he couldn't do. He is encouraging and supportive, and that's the key to being a great Jedi Master or mentor. Always be encouraging and supportive. Also, let your mentee know when something they did was great. Often when learning something new, you have to unlearn something old. A simple example is that in programming, we start counting at 0, for example, and not at 1 like we all learned in school. So as a mentor, it's also your job to help your mentee change their point of view and to help them work through some frustrations that might come with that. Try relating to their situation. When you started out, things were hard too, right? What helped you change your point of view? What helped you work through the frustration? You also need to teach them to be patient with themselves, and you need to be patient yourself too. You can't become a great Jedi programmer in just a week. You can't become a great Jedi Master in just a week. Teach them not to give up. I used to work, it probably took me about a year and a half of working with my tutoring students until we actually saw some improvements and results. And I always try to stay patient, and I always try to believe in her because she was very insecure. And I hope that you can do the same for your mentee. Teach them not to give up. Encourage them to keep on going and to not take the easy. Just as a Jedi needs to learn how to control the lightsaber, a programmer needs to learn how to control the terminal and the code editor and Git and all these wonderful things. So just give your mentee reassurance. Also, size matters not. Practice is important, but it's not important how much code you write each day. In fact, you shouldn't overdo it. Very few of us manage to write 100 lines of code every day. In order to become a programmer, you need to practice regularly, but that doesn't have to be 5 hours a day. 30 minutes of focused work each day are much more effective than trying to write a web app in one day and being really exhausted and frustrated afterwards. If you notice your mentee is overdoing it, talk to them about it. If your mentee asks you to give them something to work on until you meet the next time, give them something which doesn't take more than an hour to accomplish. Tell them it's okay if they don't finish it. It's not about finishing an exercise, it's about trying and practicing. When you first start programming or enter a new open source community, it can be really hard to find your place in this world. So another thing you can do as a mentor is to help your mentee decide what would be a great role for them in the community, or what kind of developer they should become. What kind of technologies do they like? Maybe they would even prefer to become an evangelist or a community manager after all. How could they help? Could they contribute to open source projects? Would they be a great teacher? Would they be a great conference organizer? Decide you must how to serve them best. Also, make sure you take enough breaks. Burnout is a high topic and in open source at the moment, and we all need to take better care of ourselves and to take enough breaks. Sometimes we forget about taking breaks ourselves, so it would be good if you as a mentor would just tell your mentee to take enough breaks and to practice self-care. Just like Yoda says to just with Luke, only he uses words which may sound a little harsher. Nothing more will I teach you today. Clear your mind of questions. And my final advice, and this may sound strange, but don't touch a Jedi's lightsaber, meaning don't touch your mentee's keyboard or screen. I've seen this happen a lot of times, and I'm guilty of that myself. I know that it's sometimes easier to just point to someone's screen or to just say, hey, give me your laptop and let me type that in myself. But this is a faster way of doing it, but it's not very effective, and it's actually quite disrespectful. So please try and don't do that. So we have seen that Yoda always gives Luke answers which are short, sweet, and to the point. His advice is always very precise and brief. He always gives Luke wisdom to chew on and leads him on the right path. But he doesn't always give him the answer and lets him figure some things out himself. He encourages Luke, shares his wisdom, and knocks out Luke's fears. All these things make Yoda a great Jedi Master. But there are also a couple of things that Yoda isn't so great in. So what are things that we shouldn't do like Yoda? When Yoda says this, for example, this is pretty harsh. And I would encourage you to never say that to a mentee. In fact, I think we should never use the word failure, because failure is a pretty strong word. Also, saying something like this is rather intimidating and not very encouraging. A mentor may be experienced, but they're never all-knowing, and Yoda sometimes comes across as all-knowing. Unlike Yoda, we're all not all-knowing, and we should not act like we are. It's okay to say, I don't know, let's figure this out together. A mentor's advice is not infallible. Mentors can be wrong too, and sometimes you as a mentee have to weigh what they say. That's why it's not always good to limit your mentorship to one person. Sometimes it's much better to seek the help from a variety of people, or to have different. Your mentors can also be speakers, YouTube videos, talks, anything like that. It's also important for a mentor-mentee relationship not to be too formal or overly structured. Instead, try to be friends. This isn't supposed to be a student-teacher relationship like Yoda's and Luke's. And finally, a mentor is not responsible for your growth. They can help you, but you alone are responsible for your own growth. You should see them more as an advisor. Okay, so now we have seen what makes Yoda a great Jedi Master and what mistakes Jedi Masters can make. Let's now take a look at a few tools a Jedi Master can use for their work or to make their life easier. And I'm going to just run through them very quickly because I'm kind of short on time. Here's a section of tools I would like to use. Slack is a great communication tool. Most people love Slack. Also, Slack is much easier to use for a programming beginner than something like IRC is. IRC is actually pretty hard to set up for a beginner, and it was pretty hard for myself to actually set up. Email, I know a lot of people don't like email, but it can be a great tool if you just need a quick answer. Skype or Google Hangouts are great for screen sharing or chatting one-on-one to another person. Cloud9 is a great online IDE, which lets you share workspace with someone. It's not the best IDE, but you can look at the same code at the same time and see what the other person is doing, so it works quite well. Pastebin or Gist may sound a bit trivial, but I had no idea how to share my own code with someone when I started out, so it's great to mention those as tools. Of course, there's a bunch of other tools. This is just a small basic selection. And besides these technical tools, you should have a few non-technical tools or soft skills like patience, a good attitude, a smile, friendliness, and empathy. And you may now think this all sounds awesome. I really want to become a mentor, but maybe you don't know where and how you can get involved. And here are a few suggestions. Again, I'll just run through them very quickly. You could coach at a Django Girls event. You don't have to be a Django expert in order to do this. Pretty sure that most of you could help, or you could volunteer in the Django Girls Gitter Chat. You could teach a class for PyLadies Remote, or the PyLadies in general. And unlike many people think, the PyLadies actually welcome male teachers. I would really like to have a class on Devops or something Docker related or something like that. So if you're interested in teaching a remote class for us, please reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you. If you've given a conference talk before, you could help out as a speaker mentor and help other people write a proposal or practice their talk. Again, you don't have to be super experienced. If you've given one conference talk, that's totally enough experience you need. You can get involved with organizations like Code Newbie or Open Hatch. You can help out at local sprints and hackathons or local user groups. You can become a mentor for programs like Google Summer of Code or the Outreachy internship program. You could offer your help to someone new at work, maybe to a junior engineer or just to anyone really. It's always good to know that there's that one coworker who's willing to help. You could simply encourage someone to attend a conference, workshop, or meetup with you. You could tweet on Twitter that you're willing to help with coding problems. You could create first-timers only issues on GitHub. And these issues are issues which are not hard to tackle. They're explained in great detail. And if you do this, just tag them with the label first-timers only so that people can find them. And if you maintain an open source project, you could simply put a disclaimer in the README. Some of you might not want to become a mentor. They might seek a mentor. So how do you find a mentor? In Star Wars, Luke Skywalker is directed by the ghost of Obi-Wan Kenobi to seek Yoda on Dagobah, but in real life, it doesn't always work that way. I don't have a great answer to that question already. I can only tell you how it worked out for me, and that was by just attending a lot of conferences and meetups and events and just chatting with people, and then they introduced me to more people. Also, Twitter can be a great tool. You can just tweet out that you need help or watch out for other people that offer to try and help. And that's actually how I found a lot of my mentors. Don't be shy, especially if someone's really passionate about something. They're more than willing to help you out. And if that isn't for you, if you still have no idea how to find a mentor, please reach out to me as well, and I'll try to get you in touch with the right people. So who of you is going to be a mentor to someone now? I hope that you feel a little more encouraged, and I hope that you will try to be Yoda to someone. And 2 more things. So as I mentioned, we're always looking for new PyLadies remote teachers. All of our classes are remote screencasts. We do 1 class a month, and if you like to teach a class on anything tech related, it doesn't have to be Python. Like I said, I would really like a class on Devops or Docker or something like that. Please reach out to me. We welcome male teachers as well. We also have links to our previous classes on our website, so if you're interested, please check them out, and you can follow us on Twitter at PyLadiesRemote. And as I mentioned, I recently started a new role, but it's only part-time, and I'm currently looking for either more work or a full-time role still. So if you have an idea for something at the intersection of tech and people, I wrote a little blog post explaining what I'm looking for. And if your company is hiring or if you have any leads for me, I would really appreciate if you'd reach out. That's all I have for you today. I don't think I have time to answer questions, but I'll be available in Slack. So sorry again for all the dropouts, and thank you for sticking with me. You can also tweet me later if you like. It's at OSSAnna16. I'd love to hear from you, and have a great rest of the day here at Devops Remote Conference. Thank you so much for listening to me today, and may the force be with you. I had to say that. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Anna. Yeah, Arthur's on deck, so yeah, we don't have time for questions, unfortunately. But we'll jump in with the next talk. And yeah, if you have questions, just drop them into Slack, and Anna will go ahead and answer those for you.
All right, thank you.